He has a 1-1 count. That one's struck high. Left side. That one's going. That's out of here off the lights. You have to be kidding me. Fireworks. Here you go.
Welcome in, everybody. 1A, 2A rankings are done, so we are back just for 3A, just for 4A. Obviously, if you're clicking on this video, you're here for the Class 3A rankings. Those will be here in a matter of seconds. Caden Nissen joined, as always, by Andrew Brown. Hey, before we get going, postseason, literally days away. We've got content coming for you. If you paid attention last week, 1A, 2A, we did the same thing. So 3A, 4A. We're going to have positional rankings coming out this Wednesday on Rockfin. Now, if you watched the video before and how this kind of works, I'll explain it very briefly. We're going to have the top 10 kids ranked in each grade level for 3A and 4A, and then another 15 guys listed. So 25 kids per class, or 25 kids per grade, 100 per class, ranking these guys. Just a fun way to give you guys kind of some insight on who to look out for, kind of recognizing some of the guys that had some really good regular seasons. Obviously, Andrew and I have had our hands working on this. Really tough ranking top tens. I mean, this is no fun, but I mean, you're picking and choosing between guys that all deserve to be there. And also, the day after, we're planning on Thursday, 3A, 4A on Rockfin, having Andrew and I's picks coming out on Rockfin on who we think is going to qualify for Cedar Rapids in the state tournament. So that's what you have to look for this week. But I've been talking too much. Let's get into the rankings. 15 through 11. Now, before I hand it off to Andrew, I do have to give a shout out to our honorable mentions this week. The teams that are just going to miss the cut on our final poll: Creston, Fairfield, MOC Floyd Valley, Clear Creek Amana, and Sadell on the outside looking in, going in to our final poll. But Andrew, Algona, unranked all year long, and they sneak in here at number 15 for the final poll. Kind of funny how that works. What have you liked from Algona so far in 2024?
Man, they have been knocking at the door, consistently, and they've been doing well. Obviously, Tate Slagle is the highlight. The University of Iowa commit has been obviously doing a great job here. In the end, they're second in most walks, and on top of the fact that they are top 15 in terms of their mark against 7th overall in home runs with 13. I think that for me, if I had to dive inside the rankers' mind, had to play a part in that, because they've been so dynamic, patient-wise, and then just gripping and ripping, right? On the other side of things, they have a good defense, they have good pitching. Teams hitting just 139 against them, and I think the big stamp on it, despite a 1-2 week overall, the big stamp on things was the fact that you had a 4-2 win over Sioux City Heelan. That team's going on a huge trajectory path somewhere big. And if you can take down Heelan that effectively like that, I mean, for crying out loud, in the early goings of that game, you had Sioux City Heelan with a triple, and they still couldn't get a guy in. And, again, Slagle, dominant pitching arm as well as a hitting personality. He's just overall a great player. I mean, when you have a team effort like that to take down Heelan, that's a big stamp on it. I think that's what ended up pushing them over, because you got guys in there like Creston that have been just balling. Fairfield knocking on the door. MOC Floyd Valley and Sadell, among others, Clear Creek and Amanda. Those teams have been knocking, if not already in the rankings at one point. So you can leapfrog them. You've done a good job. And I think Algona is finally, they're putting it on at the right time. And I think their body of work ended up being what pushed them in, along with that win over Heelan.
Absolutely. I do got to give a shout out quickly to Benton for hopping back in the rankings. They were last in week 6. So 3 weeks out of the rankings, this team is back. And we talk about Benton. We talk about them putting together really good hitting stats. I mean, they're top 5 in Class 3A in batting average, RBI, runs scored. And they're a pretty youthful team. A lot of really good sophomore class for the Bobcats as they enter the postseason. So do want to give a quick shout out to them as we enter our top 10 again for a final Class 3A poll in 2024. Andrew, A lot kind of sticks out here. I see Bonner and Farrar jumping. They've had a great year, competing really well in
Yeah.
the Raccoon River. I saw they set their highest win total in that conference in school history. And then Center Point Urbana, two teams that I'm kind of seeing, on a good trajectory heading into the postseason.
And this is the time where you want to be there, right? It's that point of the time. I ultimately for Center Point Urbana, I've been blessed to get the chance to see them, and I like what they have. They've got a youngster there in Talon Rissy, who I believe is trajected to be a huge impact, if beyond what he's already done in the next few years. Again, I love doing the top 100 list for that reason, getting to dive into some of these guys that even I've seen but haven't gotten to know all that well. This is a team that I swear a couple wins away, and they're already 20 plus victories. They could be way up higher in the list. I think they've earned the spot. Obviously Xavier Perez gets a lot of hype for it, but in the end, they're one of the better overall hitting teams at 320, seventh most walks as I talk about, and within the WAMAC, if you can be patient at the plate, you really go far. And again, they're near the top of the conference because of all that they've done. And I think that they're a legitimate contender. I think that they have to scare everybody out there because getting to see them, they are the real deal. And it's just been a few hits here and there that have cost them 3 to 4 losses on the year. So I think that they could be well up there if one thing goes right in some of their games. Ultimately, for Bondurant Farrar, man, I love the Blue Jays going up. I love what they're doing. It was a light week for them, but they won what they needed to. They put out a 2-0 record. In the end, they have the second best ERA in the class, and you know what? They have the fewest earned runs allowed out of any program in 3A. So that tells me that they're going to be a team built for the postseason because they can win in nearly every format. They had the speed and Robertson to just fly around the base pass, Jordan Ryle and others to pitch a game in which they can still give up 6 to 7, 8, 9 hits, right? But they can still come away with the victory of a 3-2 game, right? So they can go there, or they can do what they did early in the season and take down Pella 10-3. So they have a lot of variety, and they can go with where the game is going. You don't always have to rely and be that bruiser team, right? Because you're going to have off days. But for the Blue Jays, their off days can still be winnable. And that's not easily said for a lot of teams across the entire state. And I think Coach Duve and company, they have a lot that is going for them right now. And I don't see it stopping here soon. I think they have, again, I won't give it away, but I think they have a good run in the postseason here.
Hitting at our sub-state picks, I see Bonnarant, obviously a 1 seed in their sub-state, a pretty tough sub-state. That's going to be a ton of fun diving in. But speaking of sub-states, Andrew, I see Western Dubuque here. I think it's going to kind of raise some eyebrows. They dropped 3 spots. What do you think our ranker saw to kind of knock the Bobcats out of the top 5 for the first time all year long, I think?
This kind of was a head scratcher at first for me because the Bobcats are still in my eyes a top 5 team. And I think a lot of eyes top 5 team. I think in the end what it was some movement a movement with teams to be named ahead of them, right? I think that ultimately that's where a doubleheader loss to Linn-Mar, who I would believe is arguably the hottest 4A team in the state, or hottest team in the state currently right now. I think they are a team that you lose against them, it shouldn't ding you as bad. So I think ultimately that combined with what other teams are moving, how they're doing ahead of them, I think that's where they end up there. Ultimately, I don't have any fear whatsoever that they drop out of the top 10. I mean, they still have one of the best marks in walks, hit by pitch, ultimately one of the best on-base percentages that 3A has seen in a while. So, yes, I think that it is a little bit of a head-scratcher. In the end, will it matter come postseason? No. I mean, they're still going to run the gauntlet. They're a strong team. But I think it's due to the fact that some of the teams that will now be ahead of them have had bigger weeks, I think. In the end, that's kind of the best shot I have at that. But I like where they're headed here, and I think Western Dubuque still is one of the strongest teams in the state.
Yeah, really. I mean, these rankings are just rankings at this point. All these teams know their path. It's not like this is affecting much at all. So this is really just for fun in our final poll, Andrew. as
Yeah.
we move as we move into our top five here, Bishop Heelan stays in the top five. They do drop to obviously plenty to like with Heelan. Really dynamic duo across the pitching staff with LaFavor and Bleeker. They got a good offensive lineup. Obviously, like you said, coming off a loss to Algona is tough, but nothing to worry about for Heelan. But Solon, Andrew, I believe this is the team's highest ranking all year long in Class 3A. I know you're super high on Solon. Brett White's the big name,
Yeah.
but like you've kind of talked about, there's more to this lineup than Brett White, and that's why this team is really peaking at a really good time.
Oh man, and they have so much that I love about what they're bringing to the table. Garrett Christensen will be phenomenal at Wartburg. I'm glad that we get to see him a little bit more here behind the dish. I got to see him against Heelan again on at the Prongi Classic, and man, he was good. He was stellar, and the fact that you have Nolan Segren, who hasn't matched the numbers from last year, but he's still up there as well, and a lot of guys in there, including Maddox Kelly. He is a guy that if he hasn't been on your radar, I don't know why. He has been a stellar freshman for them this year. What I love about them is they are making their way. They're making the rounds. They're a dynamic team. They've won 9 out of their last 10. And I think that it grows higher and higher for me, and obviously the ranker, because they are. I mean, they're really firing on all cylinders at the right time. Now, their sub-state obviously will have challenges, but I think that they have a good path there. Ultimately, they have to stay with where they're at. I think they have a deep enough lineup, and their pitching. Kudos to Steinbreck, the leader of the pitching staff. I think that one of the biggest questions that they had to answer was how will their pitching stand up and will it match their offense? And I think it has for the most part this year. I know there's been a couple games hit or miss, but I think Solon is rightfully on the trajectory path. I think that in the end, the win over Heelan, I would like to think that was where you have a little bit of the 5-4 action there, because I think Heelan is still a deserving member of the top 4. But I think that maybe the ranker was looking at it as this is where the head-to-head matchup comes into play. Either way, it's just splitting hairs at this point. Both these teams well deserving for the top 5.
No doubt. Solon having a great year. And like you said, the head-to-head does matter in terms of situations like this. So good to see that coming into play. Another team that's kind of skyrocketing at a good time, Marion. 3-0 last week, Andrew. This is a team that's been a regular in our top 5. They've kind of slipped out as of lately, and here they are jumping up 2 more spots back into the top 3 again. This is our preseason #1 team, and I mean, they're number 3 right now, so they've dropped a little bit, but I'd still say this team has lived up to plenty of the hype in terms of what we thought in the preseason.
Well, and you take a look at some of the wins they had. The doubleheader sweep over Grinnell looms pretty big, right? With what Grinnell has done recently, with wins over Xavier, Benton's, Center Point, Urbana. Yes, they did get swept by Clear Creek and Manna, but for crying out loud, this is a team that still's got it, man. I mean, they have a lot there. A loss to Beckman Catholic puts a minor question into things, but ultimately, a win over North Scott also helps with that. Kirsch is a guy that Grissom Kirsch, you should definitely put your name on, or put a name on that. Get him on your radar. He's the one who had the walk-off winner for us when we were in Marion against Center Point Urbana, and it's just a very smooth swing. This team is not worried at all about being down or tied late in the game, which they were in both the games we caught and in several other games since. And you know what, man, this team goes at it with the expectation to win, and we can see what happens for the most part. Yes, they're going to have a slip up here and there, but you know what? They're battle tested. I like where they're headed out. I mean, ultimately, a couple games left, both against 4A opponents in the grand scheme coming on up. But I don't see a whole lot of resistance against them winning out and heading deep into the postseason. I think they deserve to be in the spot. they're still one of the few teams that has a +7 run differential. And they have it all working for them. They have not lost at home this season. And if they're going to get a pretty much a home standby, I mean, obviously they have obviously things change here and there, but if they get a home stand throughout the playoffs, you can almost automatically count them as a shoe-in for the state tournament. They're just that good at home. They're just that good overall.
Absolutely. Well, we do, Andrew, have a changing of the guard at number 1. I'm going to reveal North Polk here. Not a bad week for North Polk. They did lose to ADM 7-0. Really just kind of business here. But Wallert, holy cow, 5-0 on the
Wow.
week. Sweep Kennedy, sweep Linmar. They crowned themselves as MVC division champs for the first time since 2013, Andrew.
Yeah.
I mean, you can throw up a bunch of teams like in terms of the best week a team has had in their regular season. I might throw this last week for Waller Catholic up there. This last stretch of games, 5-0, beating hot 4A teams that just have seemed untouchable. Waller Catholic is, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt. This is the best team in Class 3A heading into the postseason. Do you agree?
100%. This was one of the questions that I heard was, man, of all the talent that they lost last year, how would they recoup? Right? How are they going to do that? Will Specht was the only name a lot of people knew coming into the season. And in the end, what big names we have now? Fodi Regopoulos, I don't know if there have been many games in which he hasn't gone deep on the mound. And he is just a phenomenal vacuum out there in left field. And also Brandon Cummer as well, JP Elpert. I mean, youngsters. I mean, you got guys that are going in the MVC, which you can routinely see high 80s, lower 90s. You got guys on the mound, they're just dudes, right? And defenses that do not miss. And when you can come out and win on that stretch of things, you're doing something right. I mean, ultimately, if you look at what Cedar Rapids Kennedy came in with, again, that was ultimately they had not lost back-to-back games all year. I mean, you look at the losses they've had one other loss to a 3A opponent, and that was Western Dubuque in the split. So that tells you the dominance that you have to have just to put something out there in which you win. And again, since Kennedy took on Wallert, they have annihilated the other two opponents, Independence and Hawkeyes, that they have faced. So it is truly without a doubt. And it's almost to me, I look back in this and go, man, was there something we missed to not put them at number 1 for the last 3 weeks? I mean, ultimately, they have earned their spot. They have earned their stretch. And again, not many teams can match what they've been able to do. They've got a whole laundry list of guys that have produced. Coach Tischer is, in my mind, I would love to put him up for, a 3A Coach of the Year. I would love to put him in the hat among many, right? But he is a guy that I look and go, man, he has orchestrated a lot of talent, but he has also orchestrated them in the correct way, which is a tough thing to do in the MVC and against their non-conference slate. So for me, it was I look at this and went, yep, I didn't even have to look at our rankers marks to know that he was going to put them up there at number 1 as they deserve to be. And honestly, they are the most dangerous team in my mind heading into the postseason.
Well, there you have it. 29-8 at this point. They're just scratching on the door of 30 wins. That'd be their third 30-win season in the last 4 years. And before that, they hadn't had 30 wins in a season since 2011. So it's just an incredible feat for Coach Tischer. Again, the hottest team in Class 3A heading into the postseason is the Waller Catholic Golden Eagles. But hey, if you stayed all the way till the end, don't miss Wednesday and Thursday on Rockfin. Massive stuff for you Iowa high school baseball fans. Great way to support us and what we do here at IABaseball. We appreciate all the support. Go check out the 4A rankings. Go follow us on socials. Drop a comment, agree, disagree, who's an underdog heading into the postseason, all that type of stuff. It's going to get crazy around here in the next few weeks. So strap in, buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride. We'll see you later, Class 3A fans.